before, or whether it was going on with Egypt, with Maidan al-Tahrir and all of the revolution and all of that. So what I mean to say is we live in a world that people are responding to events. And I want to connect that to the tweet that I sent. It's on Twitter, right? So it's like literally using a social media platform, but saying that you're always responsible before you act, no matter how you feel. Now, why is that important? A lot of the young people, I hope you're aware of this, and if you're not, my job is to try in a little bit of time that we have together to really have a common conversation. So I hope you're aware of the activism, right, and the passion and the drive of the youth in the time that we live in. For example, I hope you're aware of, we're living in a time right now in the society. I consider myself an American Muslim. My family's from Pakistan. I love my heritage. I go back to Pakistan every 2 years. I have a huge family that lives there. Alhamdulillah, I speak the language. I deeply appreciate and love my culture. But this is my country, right? This is where I grew up. This is literally how I look at the world. And if you look at the conversations that young people are having in the United States, what are they about? They're about Black Lives Matter. They're about racial injustices, anti-black violence and discrimination that takes place every day. They're about environmental justice. They're about gender justice, right? Like literally, I was listening to NPR on the way here, right? And this is the masjid, this is the house of Allah, so I don't want to talk about dunyawi matters, except to say that it informs the deen that we practice and how we engage with the world, right? The Brett Kavanaugh hearings are going on, and I hope when I say these things, if you're in high school and beyond, like you know what I'm talking about. The Kavanaugh hearings, who's potentially going to get confirmed next week or the week after as the next Supreme Court justice, which is going to affect like federal laws and policies for years and years and years, right? And there's a lot of really important questions that need to be debated and discussed, right? Because we live here, we're citizens, we vote, we pay taxes. Like, this is your country, this is my country, this is your community, this is my community. These are like the people that are our neighbors that vote for certain policies and laws, and then they affect your life, they affect my life, right? Just because you're Muslim doesn't mean you're not subject to like, racism and Islamophobia and xenophobia out there. In fact, if you're a Muslim woman, you have like 2 strikes. Sadly, because you're a Muslim, and if you wear hijab, you're visibly Muslim. So you know what I'm talking about when I talk about forces, and I'm not saying this to scare people. And this is real talk, right? This is how I talk in my students, in my khutbahs, in my halaqas, is that we need to wake up to the fact that there's a lot of deep problems and pathologies, right? I come from a family of doctors, so we use a lot of medical terminology. Deep pathologies in the society. Racism, xenophobia, right? Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, anti-black racism, right? Gender injustice. Like, these are issues that as Muslims, we should in many ways, now we're forced to be in the conversation, right? Because of what happened in the aftermath of the 2016 national elections, and then you saw all of this, like, these demons that were unleashed, right? The shayateen that were unleashed into society with Islamophobia and people doing things and saying things about Muslims in public that, it's not that, this fitna didn't exist before. But what happened is, and I don't mean to get political with this, except to say, I think we're all on the same page and we can agree that the shayateen that were released after the effects of the 2016 election, there's no putting that back in the bottle, right? This is a reality you have to deal with now. Right? White supremacy, the alt-right, neo-Nazi language has literally infected national discourses. I hope if you're in school, if you go to a good high school, if you go to a good college, like you're thinking about this, right? This is what they call being woke, right? You're woke to the idea of the injustices economically, the class warfare that's going on right now, obviously the Me Too movement, all of that. What I mean to say is, we as Muslims are living in a time right now, we are not on the sidelines. If you want to be on the sidelines, I don't want to be the one to give you the bad news. You are not on the sidelines anymore. You're in the game. And you need to pay attention when you're in the game. Right? Like what's going on. That's why we come from a tradition, Summa alhamdulillah, right? In which our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu taught us 1400 years ago. And the book of Allah inspires us and motivates us and presents us with a charge to be people of justice. Whether that's standing for justice towards the degradation of the environment, with economic injustice, with gender injustice, with racial injustice, with all of these problems, we're the people that when we look at the world and we listen to the conversations that are taking place, the conversations from all of the activist groups out there, we need to be a part of that conversation. Why now, when I'm looking back, I'm trying to think, what was in my mind when I sent this tweet out? I think it was for the fact that, alhamdulillah, I I sit kind of in the middle. In the middle in this sense. I have many, many dear friends of mine that are activists for the variety of activist causes that are out there, right? They're on the front lines. They're the ones organizing rallies. They're the ones organizing marches. They're the ones that are protesting, the unjust policies, but the police brutality and tyranny, and any number of things that are going on. And at the same time, I have many, many friends that are scholars, right? Men and women that are ulama, that are scholars that know our deen, that understand the Quran and the Sunnah, and the depth of the wisdom, of the nasiha, of the profound guidance that our deen presents. And it's really about having these two in conversation with each other, right? That our deen presents us with timeless nasiha and wisdom. We believe that the book of Allah, Kitabullah, is for all peoples, all times, all places. It's one thing to say it, it's another thing to believe it in your heart. That you as a young person, or as an old person for that matter, irrespective, in 2018, living in the world that you live in, living in the society that you live in, that you have to believe that the words of Allah are immortal. The words of Allah were just as resonant and as powerful for Bilal radiallahu anh, for Aisha radiallahu anha, for all of the men and the women, the great men and women that came before us 1,400 years ago, sitting on the dirt floor in Medina Munawwara, that then spread to Africa, that then spread to Asia, that literally spread to the entire globe through the last 1,400 years of history. You have to believe that those words of the Quran and the Sunnah of beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam were just as powerful for them and just as motivating for them as it has to be for you. When you read the book of Allah, you read the Sunnah of the beloved Messenger of Allah, and you study it, that it has to inspire you and speak to your circumstances. Now, I think the beauty of it is, we believe this, right? It's one thing and we have to believe this deep in our hearts and souls. The next phase is how do you actualize it, right? First is studying, processing, internalizing, right, in here, and the next step is actualizing. What do you do with this? And so the idea is you're always responsible for how you act, no matter how you feel. And I'm going to change gears in just a moment to kind of a very timely conversation, but is that, look, when you read the events of the world, where do you want to start? You tell me. You want to start in Myanmar, in Burma, with the rape camps that are set up by the Burmese government there, right? You look at the horrific, the genocide that's taking place there, right? You want to look at what's going on, the war in Yemen with the dysentery outbreak and cholera. It's the World Humanitarian Organization that said it's the world's worst man-made humanitarian disaster in front of our eyes of what's going on. People are starving like every day, right? As we speak, people are starving to death in Yemen. You want to talk about the absolute disaster and nightmare that's Syria? You want to talk about what's going on in East Africa, in Somalia, and in Sudan? You want to talk about what's going on in Gaza, in Palestine? You want to talk about what's going on in Kashmir? You can start anywhere, or you can talk about what's going on here. Is that if you have a living, breathing heart, and you're awake to what's going on to the world, this is enough to A, make your blood boil, or B, make you cry until you can't cry anymore. But the challenge is if we don't have guidance, we don't have nasiha to follow, we don't have advice to follow. This is what happens when people get so emotional and get so passionate. And not that passion is a bad thing, passion is a good thing, it's a wonderful thing. That's what tells you that your heart is alive, that you can empathize and feel the pain that other people have, right? Is that you're responsible for how you act. And that's like a very Islamic concept. Is that one can be and needs to be woken up and motivated. Right? And you can feel anger, you can feel passion, you can feel, these very powerful emotions, but you have to be responsible for what you do with those emotions and how you act with them. And that is of the many brilliant pieces of advice that our Prophet ﷺ taught us. This is the thing that he taught us, is that he trained the Sahaba. He did the tarbiyah. Now listen to the word tarbiyah. It's a beautiful word in Arabic. Tarbiyah comes, one of the roots of the word of tarbiyah comes from the word to raise, right? So murabbi is a related word to tarbiyah. Murabbi is used in two senses typically. One sense, it's the farmer that goes and tills the soil. right? You break the soil, you plant seeds in the soil, and then you have to water it. You have to make sure that there's no predators that come and destroy that young sapling that's growing, right? And the tending and the tenderness that you bring to taking sure that that little seed becomes a little plant, and that little plant is going to grow, and it's going to grow stalks, and then that stalk is going to become a trunk, and that trunk is going to have branches, and those branches are going to have fruits. That's the job of a murabbi. And a murabbi is also used in the sense of a teacher, right? Someone that does that literally with their students. That they take them when they're young, they're impressionable, and you feed them, you nurture them, you nourish them, you take care of them physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, taking care of all of their needs in the way that a parent does that for a child. That's tarbiyah. And this is a whole separate halakha topic, right? Where the Prophet said what? He goes, I was sent only as a teacher, as a mu'allim, right? Mu'allim is the one that teaches you, that guides you, right? As a murabbi is a synonym for our purposes here. But that, if you look, the majority of the Sahaba, the majority of them were not scholars. Like, it's wonderful that we have this beautiful past that we reflect upon of scholarship. And don't get me wrong, I, for one, am all about reviving the tradition of Islamic scholarship for men and women. Absolutely. But the point that I'm making right now is that the majority of the Sahaba, and I use this in very careful terms, they were normal people. They weren't all ulama, like scholars that give, that teach and give fatwa and things like that. They were normal people in that they had lives like you and I have lives. They had jobs. They had responsibilities. They had stresses in life. They had issues with their families. They had issues in society. They were dealing with the things that, as you and I, when we talk about the human condition, we deal with as well. But the big difference, other than the fact that the Sahaba and Sahabiyat, that they were blessed to literally see the Prophet ﷺ and be in a sohbah in this lifetime, is that they had undergone the tarbiyah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he had taught them as the best teacher to the best students, to prepare them, to forge them into these extraordinary human beings. That no matter where they went in life, no matter what circumstances they found themselves in, you don't think they had a battle? Right? In the sense that when we talk about issues in society, issues of racism, issues of classism, issues of marginalization, issues of injustice, all of the things that, human problems haven't changed. What humanity was plagued with for thousands of years, right? In our tradition, what we call the problems of the nafs, the spiritual diseases of takabbur, of arrogance, of hasad, of jealousy and envy, of bukhal, of being miserly. These are human problems. It doesn't matter if it was at the time of Musa alayhi salam, or the time of Nuh alayhi salam, or the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or in our time now, or it's going to be until the end of time. Right? Until Sayyidina Isa alayhi salam returns. Because these are human problems. This is the way Allah Ta'ala created us. The challenge that we live in now is that people, rather than focusing on internally rectifying themselves and doing their tarbiyah, we're looking at the outside problems. And trust me, I get it. The outside problems are like tidal waves. If you read the news, and you see there's young people here, I don't want to keep depressing the young people with all the bad news, but if you look at the news, it's heartbreaking. Right? We live in a time now where you can get real life updates constantly, right? And it'll literally drive you crazy. That's why one of the best pieces of advice I can give people, specifically in Ramadan, is you have to just cut off from social media and cut off from just that aspect of the dunya and constantly flooding your brain. But now, even outside of Ramadan, we need to be people that are, electronically literate. We understand when and how to use news and social media and apps and all that. That's another conversation. A lot of young people, it's very toxic, right? They find themselves Snapchat takes over their life, or they're so obsessed with their online persona and they lose touch with reality. That's a whole other conversation for another time. But I wanted to say is that for us as people, is that we understand the power and importance of what the tazkiyah, the tarbiyah that we're supposed to do on our own hearts. Because when you do that, and you do that with righteous men and women, right? That they're qualified and trained, and this is the responsibility that they take upon themselves, as I'm sure every community, including this community, has, right? In your elders, from the religious scholars, men and women that you have, is that one of the beautiful things. I'll just make a tangent here, but it's important, right? The Prophet ﷺ said in a very powerful, very famous hadith, he said, we are a community that respects its elders and honors its youth and has rahmah, has mercy upon its youth. Now look at the brilliance of this hadith of Rasulullah. All of the hadith of the Prophet are brilliant. But in this one in particular, he's saying, you can find yourself at any level. Any person can find themselves, like in the context of this hadith, right? He's defining it, this Jamaat, is a community that respects its elders, that by, like, transculturally, right, transnationally, doesn't matter, irrespective of what culture or what nationality you come from as a Muslim, if you're part of the ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, that we respect our elders. That's part of, like, transcultural Muslim adab, Muslim manners and comportment and decorum. Is that when you see the elderly people in your community, right? We even have this, like, in our culture, right? We say ammu, uncle, khala, auntie, like that idea. You teach this to your children when they're young. It doesn't matter if they're your physical uncle or auntie or ammu or khala. The fact that they're like a member of the Jamaat and you're a member of the Jamaat is that you teach your children from a young age that this is auntie so-and-so, this is uncle so-and-so. Because this is encoding culture and values, right, and morals and ethics from a young age, that these people, this is your family. It doesn't matter their color, it doesn't matter their race, it doesn't matter their nationality, it doesn't matter their class, it doesn't matter where they come from. They're part of the ummah of Rasulullah ﷺ, that they are related to you. He says, we are people that honor our elders. So when you see an elderly person, right, this is what you teach your children. You hold the door for them. You let them go in front of you in line if it's like time at the masjid to get, like, baklava or samosa or something like that, or biryani. Like, that's how you teach your children, right? And trust me, I hate to say this, and I know I'm just like being Facebook Live or something like that, right? When I travel all over, I go to masajid across the country, I go to MSAs, I go to college campuses. I'm not kidding you. These are things that, like, we took for granted. There's people, they don't know this stuff anymore. I was literally at an event a few weeks ago, and they had a program. I won't mention the country, the city or school or whatever, but they had a program, and they had, like, food, mashallah, lined up. I mean, you can tell I'm getting hungry, right? They had the food lined up, and then the people that went in the front, their, like, plate was overflowing. Right? I was watching, they're like, there's, samosas and biryani and all this stuff, kabsa, it's all like overflowing, falling out of the plate. And then the poor, say bichare, like, the poor people, the miskeen people at the end of the line, they got there and there was like scraps. Right? Nobody told them, it's basic adab, right? That if you're in the front of the line, you take enough, you take a moderate amount with the niyyah, with the intention that I'm going to leave it for the people that come behind me. This is an act of ibadah, this is an act of worship, of pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you eat, to a certain extent, and then if you're still hungry and there's still food left, Bismillah, then you go around a second time. Right? Well, these are things that at some level was taught to our children in our communities and stuff like that. Things like that aren't being taught anymore, right? Or people are losing these things. It's eroding from our and I'm not even talking like, this is basic adab of social living. I'm not talking about khutbahs, bayans, tafsir, hadith and all that. This is like essentially what, irrespective of where you come from in the Muslim world, this is what you should understand, or what should be taught, right? And then the flip is what? The Prophet said, we're a community that honors its elders, and the opposite, not the opposite, but the other flip side is that it has rahmah, it has mercy on its youth. That youth is a time of energy, of passion, of vitality, of vibrancy. But young people make mistakes. And having rahmah upon young people is, you understand that they're going to make mistakes. They're going to stumble. But the elders or older people, let's put it that way, that have maturity, that have wisdom, that have life experience, they understand how to speak to them and how to guide them. Right? That's tarbiyah. Right? That you made a mistake, you said this or did this or whatever, and then you work with people, right, to bring them back. And you can find yourself, are you one of the older people? Are you one of the people in the middle that's looking up and down? Or are you one of the younger people? Right? And the beauty of it, from my understanding, is that essentially all of us, we're all three, right? We're all mixed in there at some level. There's always going to be people older than you. There's always going to be people younger than you. And so these are the things that, like, why am I connecting this to, like, the look at the issues of the world? Because if we can't fix the little things, how do you think we're going to fix the big things? If we can't fix the little things in our houses, in our families, in our hearts, I mean, look, who doesn't want Philistine to be liberated and Who doesn't want the injustice and the zulm, the oppression to end in Burma, or in Yemen, or in Syria, or any number of these places that's going on, right? But it's about, like, we overlook the fact that every day Allah Ta'ala presents you with choices. You have big choices, you have small choices. Do I do this? Do I do that? Do I speak nicely, or do I have an attitude, right, with people? Right? If someone is aggressive to me, or someone has attitude to me, in that moment, in that nanosecond, that split second, I have a choice how I can respond. And the beauty of the Sunnah is that we have the guidance for all potential circumstances, opportunity, whatever you want to call it. The Prophet guided us and taught us how you respond to these things. That's a lifetime of education. That's real. When we talk about, like, real deep education, like, I'm saying this very self-consciously. I come from literally one of the best universities in the world. I, like, regularly see people that are brilliant IQs. They are, like, win Nobel Prizes and have all sorts of accolades and get written about in international media and have viral TED Talks and all of this kind of stuff. And then when you spend time with people, right, the famous and the powerful, the intellectual elite and all of that, and then you look at it through the lens of what our beloved Nabi Kareem Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, what is real ilm, what is real knowledge, right, is that who you are as a person, right, the character that you have. Imam Shafi'i Rahmatullahi has this beautiful quote. I mean, all of our scholars, men and women, look at the depths of their wisdom. Imam Shafi'i Rahmatullahi said, the rough translation, which is, there are people who are alive, but their character has killed them. And there are people who are dead, but their character has kept them alive. There are people who are deceased. There's people who are alive, but their character has killed them. And there's people who are deceased, but their character has kept them alive. Let's unpack that for a second. Imam Shafi'i said that there's people who are alive, like they live, they breathe, they walk and talk, right? But their character has killed them. They don't have any khair, they don't have any goodness to give to the world. In fact, these are people that are what we call toxic. Like, literally what they do, what they say, the emotional energy or lack thereof, they just bring everything down. It's negative, it's corrosive, like acid, right? Their character is so wretched and so vile that, like, if they're in a group or in a community or something like that, if the character has killed them, they're already considered them dead, but they're living, breathing, right? They're walking, talking. And then Imam Shafi'i said, and it rhymes in Arabic, that's the beauty of it, right? Imam Shafi'i said that there's people who are dead, they're long gone, but their character has kept them alive. Their akhlaq. That's what he's talking about. That literally 1,000 years ago, there were people, men and women, young and old, that walked this earth. That today, when we remember them, we say, Rahimullah, Rahmatullahi alayhi. Right? May God have mercy on them. Some of them we know about, some of them we don't know about. Some of them are remembered by their ancestors, by their descendants, by their cultures as being righteous people, salihin wa salihat, righteous men and women that came before. And all we have are stories of them, right? But the idea is their characters alive, and you tell stories of them, and it's as if these people are alive. And the best example are the Sahaba and Sahabiyat, radiyallahu anhum ajma'in, right? So, I mean, in these dark times, these are dark times, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Every day I wake up, I go to school, I go to work, I'm at campus, you read the papers, you're like talking to people are stressed, students are passionate, they're engaged, they want to make a difference in the world, they want to transform the world. We as older people need to think about what are we leaving behind, right? Like, literally, what shape are we leaving the world in for them? Economically, politically, socially, environmentally. Like, what is it that I have 3 kids, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. What am I leaving behind for my kids, for your kids, right? Like, I hope I'm an uncle to your kids, and I hope that my kids consider you their uncles and aunties. Like, that's the vision that you want to leave behind for your children, right? But let me tell you something else. Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu once said that the wind blows not to make trees dance, but to test their roots. The wind blows not to make trees dance, but to test their roots. 1 year ago we had the Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico, right? And I just use it as an example, right? My mother-in-law lives in North Carolina, right? I mean, she lives inland. There was massive flooding, but they weren't by the coast, right? But like, this is real, right? Every day we hear about something that's going on. There was a huge typhoon that hit the Philippines and Southeast Asia. Like, we live in a world now that we can hear this, and you can see, 100 mile per hour, 150 mile per hour winds and floods and storm surges and all of that. Like, we live in a world where you can find out about this stuff. And you see the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or a glimpse of some of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you look at the wisdom of Sayyidina Ali, he said the wind blows not to make trees dance in a storm, but to test their roots, what they're made of. And perhaps there's no time better than today. When you look at the fitan, you look at the problems, right, that are going on every day in our country, across the world, you name it. Political problems, problems of racism, problems of Islamophobia, problems of xenophobia, problems of anti-Semitism. Like, the list goes on and on and on. And so this is a time when our roots are being tested. And it goes back to that thing that I mentioned in the beginning. You're responsible for how you act, not just how you feel. So we need to be people that look back into the life of the Prophet ﷺ when they had fitna, when they had tribulation. You know, one of the amazing things about the word fitna, just as an example, fitna comes from the classical Arabic word for when you have metal, when you have minerals, ore, and you burn it at such an exceedingly high temperature that you separate gold from baser materials. And people that are in chem class know this better than I do, right? Gold is a pure material, but it's mixed in the earth, obviously, with other materials, and there has to be a way of extracting it. So fitna is when you have such intensity of heat that you can actually melt the gold and separate it from like non-pure materials. That's what happens when fitna strikes. You see who's made of what in society. If fitna comes, Allah protect us all. If fitna comes into a society, right, Allah Ta'ala's seeing who are the people that are gossiping, who are the people that are attacking other people, who are the people that are actually actively like causing more fitna, that are part of the fitna. Versus who are the people that are like firefighters? They're like, let's like literally de-escalate the situation. Let's control what's going on. Let's stop the hemorrhaging, right, of what's going on in society. You can imagine any number of examples, from that goes on fitna in a community, fitna in a family, fitna in a society, fitna in cultures and civilizations and whatnot. But we're nearing the end. I know the Maghrib Adhan is very soon. So I want to really quickly, yesterday was Ashura, was the 10th of Muharram. I just want to speak about that really briefly. It's important for us to understand our Islamic calendar. And there's a lot that can be said, but for our purposes, I just want to share a few thoughts with you. We're at the beginning of this is now the Islamic Hijri year of 1440. Today is the 11th according to the local calendar, of the 11th of the month of Muharram of the year 1440 in the Islamic calendar. A couple of thoughts that I'll leave you with, inshallah, then we'll pray Maghrib. And after Maghrib, if there's still interest, I'm happy. I love to do Q&A and a conversation with folks that want to continue. And then if there's food, then inshallah we can break for food as well. Is this. That when Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu made the Islamic calendar, and it was during his khilafah, it was one of the wisdoms that Allah Ta'ala blessed him with. He's the one that systematized the calendar as we understand it, the Hijri calendar. And there's a long story to it, but for our purposes. The Sahaba did mashwara, and they consulted with each other about how should we delineate our calendar? How do we set up our calendar? What are the most important events? And obviously the most important event was what? Was the Hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam from Mecca to Medina. And there's so much that can be said about that. Scholars have literally written books on that subject, but I want to leave you with one piece of advice, what that means. Right? Why is the hijrah important? Of the many reasons that when you look at the hijrah, the idea of muhajir is the one that makes hijrah, right? It's the active participle. Muhajir is the one that leaves, a place of danger to a place of safety. That's literally what the muhajirin were. They were in musibah, they were in tribulation and problems and fitna in Mecca. We all know the stories of what they did, to the Sahaba, to the Sahabiyat, what was taking place in Mecca. They were torturing them, they were boycotting them, they were oppressing them, they were killing them. Sayyidina Sumayya radiallahu anha, Sayyidina Yasir radiallahu anhu, what they did to Sayyidina Bilal radiallahu anhu, and the list goes on and on and on. And so finally the Prophet was given permission by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make hijrah from the danger, right, of Mecca to the safety of Al-Madinah Munawwara. And so the idea of the muhajirin were they were people who left that which was harmful to them to the place that was beneficial for them. Why is that important for us today when we remember in the month of Muharram the idea of the power of the hijrah? Is, at some level people say, well, if there's danger in one place and you make hijrah to another place. Okay, maybe we don't live in a world right now where there's physical danger immediately in front of us. But the idea here is that if there is, wherever you are in your life, right? Who is not struggling with something in their life? Some challenges in their life, right? I mean, if you're honest with yourself, we all have the things that we're working on internally, or should be working on, right? Maybe we're lazy with our prayers. Maybe we're not very charitable people. Maybe we have a problem with backbiting. Maybe we don't read Quran as much as we should. Maybe we're struggling to, between halal and haram. And maybe we're struggling with lowering our gaze, with watching our tongues, with waking up to pray, with giving our sadaqah and zakah, with any number of things. Like literally, you have to ask yourself, you should ask yourself, right, when you look in the mirror, like, what kind of person am I? And what do I want to improve about myself? Like one of my mashayikh told me, what you should do, and he said this in Ramadan, but trust me, it's applicable outside of Ramadan. He goes, you should sit down with yourself and you should get a piece of paper and a pen. And literally, this is a deep point. Do it with a pen and paper. Don't do it like on your phone. Like I'm guilty of that too, right? I use a notes app on my phone. Like literally write down with a piece of pen and paper. And you should make, what are 10 things you want to change about yourself? And you don't tell this to anybody. This is not for anyone else's consumption or observation. This is for you. And if you can't even get to one or two things, then you have a real problem, right? Because then you're so stuck in yourself, being impressed and obsessed with yourself. Then we're in real trouble, as they say, right? But make a list of 10 things that you want to improve about yourself. And then, this is not the point of what I want to make right now, but then what you do is you then sit down and you talk to people, you get good advice from people, right? Advice from different people about how do I improve these things, how do I fix this, etc., etc. That's what elders, teachers, murabbis, mashayikh, ulama, mentors, coaches, teachers, that's what they're there for, right? They literally are people that will help you along the way. Whatever goal you have that you want to achieve, you go to someone that knows and you ask them, look, I don't know how to do this. Can you teach me how to fix it? What I was going to say was, the idea for hijrah, for the muhajir is this. You have to think about in your life, what is it that you want to move away from? Maybe you're struggling with backbiting. Maybe you're struggling with being a charitable person. You're a very miserly person. You don't give sadaqah. You're not charitable with your time or your money or something like that. Maybe you're someone who gossips a lot, right? Maybe you're someone who doesn't like to pray or doesn't pray at all. Maybe you're someone that just doesn't see the value or the benefit of reading Quran. Any number of things that you're struggling with in your life. And hijrah is you actively, consciously saying, I'm making a choice. That's why the Sahaba. Families there. That's why. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. And again, that's a whole separate. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. Musa goes literally to the sea. And this is the adhan here in the masjid? Yeah. Okay, inshallah we'll stop here. We'll break, we'll pray Maghrib, and inshallah we can continue for a few more minutes. Okay, we'll come back after the sunnahs of Maghrib. Okay, and then we'll have Q&A, inshallah, till dinner time. Okay. So inshallah, we'll break down anyone